Welcome to the Sincerely God podcast. I'm Sarah, and I believe that God is speaking to all of us all the time and in many different ways. The primary way that I listen is through two-way journaling. And on this podcast, I share excerpts from my journaling time with God, which are really inspirational messages spoken from the perspective of God to you. I'll talk more about what two-way journaling is and explore other methods which may be helpful for you to listen to God in your own unique way. I'm just an ordinary person who gets to hear from an extraordinary God, and I believe you can too. Thanks for joining. Hi everyone, I have a shorter excerpt I wanted to share today. This is all the way back from June of 2018, and it's always so interesting to me how these words that God spoke so many years ago are continuously speaking to me in different situations in my life. And so anyway, I just want to share it with you today. He says, "My child, why do you worry and fret? Have I not already proven my provision? I am in control of all things. Yes, people can make their own choices, but my plans will come to be. I desire to use my children to fulfill the details of my plans and promises, but I am not reliant upon their obedience. I am in control of all. Rules are set up and taken down by my authority alone. Trust, be still. Do not try to work things out on your own or influence decisions or people. Trust that I am in control. Trust, my child, trust me. When you let things go and let them be, you are not saying you don't care or you don't desire them to change. You are simply allowing me to do my work. My work is best, my ways are best, and my plans will come to be. Rest and be peaceful. Do not fret or worry. Be a rock on my firm foundation, which is not easily moved by the wind and waves around it. I am your firm foundation. You are secure in me. You will withstand anything that comes your way because you are secure in me. Let come what may, let pass what may pass. I am doing a new thing in this place, in all the places you call home. I am doing a new thing in your mind and all your ways of thinking. I am realigning your thought processes. Let my way be known. Sing of my goodness in the morning. Shout for joy in the daytime. Speak of my truths and promises in the evening. I am your provider. I am your sustainer. I do not hold back. I do not keep good things from my children. Trust me. Believe in me and my ways. Do not doubt. Do not delay or hold back when I speak truth to you. Receive it fully with open arms and open heart. Receive freely and fully, and then freely give." I think the theme in this specific word is so much about trusting God. And that has definitely been a theme for my own life. And of course, I think all of us, it's a root to so much of what we face, right? So many things that God is doing, just transforming work in the way that we live. So much of it boils down to that root of, do we trust Him, right? And this, why do you worry and you fret? I do that all the time. That's a constant thing that I am having to be intentional to stop these worry thoughts that are running in my mind. And this idea of He is our provider, that God is in control of all things. And honestly, I don't understand this. There's this mystery that is beyond my human understanding when it comes to how God is in control of all things. He says here, yes, people can make their own choices, but my plans will come to be. He says, I desire to use my children to fulfill the details of my plans and promises, but I'm not reliant upon their obedience. That's hard to understand because it's what is our place, right? How do our decisions, we know our decisions impact the people around us. We've been impacted by the decisions of others. So when God says, I'm in control and I'm going to basically have my way, have my plans come to be, regardless of whether people obey me, it's hard to fully understand that. And maybe it's more about that He'll have His ultimate way, right? There can be detours. You can say, hey, I'm going to drive to my friend's house. I'm going to go from point A to point B. And there's so many different routes that you can choose from. And perhaps there's a best route that is the fastest, the most efficient, or perhaps the best scenery along the way. But we can choose to go left when we should have gone right, or when it was God's desire for us to go right. And maybe that route that should have taken, 10 minutes takes us 5 hours because we've gone here and there and, have to turn around. And I think that might be more of what he's saying here is, sure, we make our own decisions, and sometimes we make decisions that are in disobedience, that are not in accordance with what God desires for us and his best for us, but he will have his ultimate way. And maybe that will be in a future generation. We can experience things, let's say, even if in our own families, right? You see families that decisions that parents have made or grandparents have made that have impacted generation to generation, but God can make a way. And you can see that even just, in the stories in the Bible of the Israelites as a nation making poor decisions, but ultimately God bringing them back. And maybe that is part of being able to see from God's perspective is understanding that God exists outside of time. And so it looks to us like his plans have not succeeded, that he is not in control. But if we can take that bigger step back, which is probably impossible for us to do as humans, but looking from God's perspective, he is in ultimate control, and somehow he makes a way to fulfill his plans and promises. So I don't know. I think it's something that I'm still wrestling with. It's part of just that mystery and not fully understanding from a practical perspective of how this looks in my everyday life. But above all, trust him. I think that's the biggest thing when he says, trust, be still. Don't try to work things out on your own. That there's going to be times and places, he says, don't try to influence the decisions of people. Sometimes you need to let people make their own decisions, even if those decisions are going to negatively affect you. I do think it's important for us to speak our truths and to speak up and share wise advice and all those things, but you can't manipulate someone. You can't ultimately control someone. They're going to make their own decisions. And what God's saying is basically, don't put your trust in your ability to influence that person. Don't put your trust in that person's ability to make decisions that you think are best, but put your trust in God. And maybe the path to get to that ultimate promise or that plan that God has laid out, maybe it looks a little bit longer or more complicated than you want it to be, but trust that God is ultimately in control and trust that God is with you. I think that's been my biggest thing, is that even when circumstances don't go the way that I want or even the way that I think God wants, I know that God is always with me. I know that I can look to him for help, for support, for peace, for strength, for grace, all of those things. And that's ultimately where I can put my trust, and that I'm not dependent upon other people's decisions, that I'm not dependent upon circumstances to go a specific way, that I can kind of just walk alongside, with God along this path, that no matter what, there's somebody there that's helping me, and that he's got this perspective that is outside of time, that is bigger than what I can see. And he says, my plans will come to be. God's plans will come to be. Maybe that's not in our lifetimes, or maybe that's not in the way that we hoped or planned, but ultimately he says his plans will come to be. And again, he says, do not fret or worry. Be a rock on my firm foundation, which is not easily moved by the wind and waves around it. I think that goes back to the same theme of, right, we don't put our trust in the decisions of other people. We put our trust in God, who is our firm foundation, that we can experience storms in life, right? We can experience wind and waves that are scary and hurtful and feel like we're going to be lost at sea, but recognizing that those ways, those decisions of other people, those circumstances that are outside of our control, that they're not where we put our trust, and they're not the foundation that really we base our lives on, that God is, and that God is above and beyond and more stable than any of those things that we see in our everyday life. And maybe you find yourself in a circumstance that is beyond your control. Maybe there's a decision that somebody made that has impacted you negatively, maybe very significantly. And I just encourage you to try to go deeper and see, where is God saying, I'm right there with you? Where is God saying, lean on me? And I know that can seem impossible, that you may be facing something that is really beyond anything I can understand. There are so many things in this life that are unimaginable of the amount of just hardship and pain. And I pray for you in that you can have peace and strength and perseverance, but look to who is your foundation. And sometimes when you feel so much of that back and forth and just this lack of stability, sometimes it's worsened because we're looking to put our trust on other people. We're looking at circumstances or these other things to be our foundation, and really those aren't going to be able to hold you. And so try to just take a little time, and maybe that's trying to find quiet time with God and just really bearing your heart to him, right? If you can lay out what your concerns are, sometimes just doing that and then listening and having a moment of just allowing him to speak to your heart. And maybe that would be thoughts that are coming in your mind. Maybe that's memories that are coming up of remembering a time where you had more stability, remembering a time where you felt more safe. And maybe there's something in that memory that God is trying to remind you of. Maybe there's a hard memory of a difficult time that God wants to show you more. You know, I've had people walk through an exercise where when you're trying to heal from trauma, and I don't know that you want to necessarily do this on your own. I think it's better to do it with someone that you trust, that is safe, that can be kind of in that space with you. And sometimes it's not the right time, right? It needs to be when you're ready to face it. But I've heard people walk through this approach of basically taking that difficult memory, right? That traumatic memory, and bringing it to God and asking him, where were you? Show me where you were in this moment. And I've heard amazing stories of people that get images of just seeing Jesus right there with them, holding them close, protecting them in a way that they couldn't see in that moment, especially as a child, right? There's things, and back to this whole aspect of people can make their own choices, right? Maybe you were abused as a child, and I'm so sorry for that. And there's decisions that your parents made or whoever it was that abused you that made that was not what God wanted. But sometimes you can go back to that memory and see where God was. And so that's something you might consider. It's something that you need to be ready for. So I wouldn't say rush into that, but it's just something that you can consider. But just recognizing that we can't place our trust, we can't build our life upon other people, upon things in this life that really are ever changing, that truly the only true firm foundation that's stable, unchanging is God. And then he says, I'm doing a new thing in this place and all the places you call home. I'm doing a new thing in your mind and all your ways of thinking. I'm realigning your thought processes. And this has been something that I can see in my own life. And I believe it is still happening today, that there's things that he's doing in this world, that God is doing a new thing. I believe that we're going to start seeing things happen in the world, in the global church, right? Not just this individual church building, but people who truly follow Jesus, that we're going to start seeing God move in ways that we've never seen before. Not just that we've never seen in this generation, but that we have never seen before. I believe that God is himself unchanging, yet there's so much to him that he can do a new thing every single hour of every single day and never run out of aspects of who he is and what he is capable of. And so I believe we're going to see this new thing. I believe we're already starting to see it in some ways, but it's going to be beyond what we can understand. And so having like an openness, an open mind, an open heart to say, God, I trust you. And even if it looks different, even if whatever is happening is something that it can be uncomfortable, right? When we face something that's new, it can be uncomfortable. But can you face it hand in hand with God? Can you step into that new situation knowing that God is your foundation and that you can go to him for help, you can go to him for wisdom, you can go to him for strength and patience and support and encouragement, all of those things. And that's why I really just encourage you to take time to learn how God is already speaking to you, because that changes everything. When you can begin to tune in to God's voice, and that can look so many different ways, right? For me, two-way journaling is a huge way that has been super helpful for me to tune into God's thoughts that are in my own mind. But there's so many other ways. I've personally received, and I have friends that this is their primary way of like tuning into God's voice is through visions, through images, pictures that come into their mind, dreams. God speaks to me through my dreams all the time. There's so many different ways that he can be speaking to you. Maybe it's through nature, maybe it's through music, but explore that and maybe look at the history of your life. Where have there been times where you felt like you just knew something, right? Or you felt peace about something? Can you pinpoint, maybe was there something that came that brought that truth to you maybe before it happened or before you realized it? I do have an e-course that you can check out if you're looking for maybe just ways to explore, kind of go deeper in that, how to tune into God's voice. It's called Discovering the Ways God is Speaking to You. I do have a link in my profile and all of that. So that's something that if you want to check out, but ask people around you, like, hey, how do you recognize when God is communicating to you? How does God speak to you? And ask questions. And if they just say like, oh, I just know it's God, push more. How do you know? How have you experienced that one thought is from God and one thought is just your own thought? Like, explore that with people that you know, and then take time to explore that in your own life and look at, like, I believe that God is speaking to all of us all the time, but in so many different ways. And so if we get caught up in a singular way, maybe we know one person that this is the way that they tune into God's voice. And so we think that that's how we have to listen, but maybe you're completely different and God speaks to you in a completely different way. So I just encourage you in that, because for me personally, it has been the biggest transformation in my life of being able to, no matter the circumstances, right? No matter how difficult it may seem or what I'm facing, I can go to God and listen, and I can get wisdom, I can get encouragement, and it changes everything, right? When you can have the God of the universe speaking to your heart, saying like, I'm with you and I am in control and I have all you need and I'm going to give you what you need in that moment, and just breathe in and receive my peace. Like it changes how you approach a situation. It changes how you are when you're by yourself, right? When you have those worry and fret thoughts that are coming in, to know that you can go to God and receive his peace in place of that. So I just encourage you, continue to explore, continue to grow in the ways that you're tuning into how God speaks to you, and then trust him. That's the biggest thing, is learning to trust him. And I don't think that trust is just a snap your fingers and you just automatically trust. I think it's a process, and it's something that God walks alongside with you. And it's a proving out, right? When you, let's say you're starting a relationship, you don't necessarily automatically trust this person. You let them show you, you let them prove to you that they are trustworthy. And so I think it's okay. And I think it's actually, in a way, God's way to allow us to have his trust proven to us. And that sometimes takes taking risks, right? Like if you never put yourself in a situation where you are dependent upon God, where you're maybe trusting something that he spoke to you or something that you feel he's putting in your heart, if you never actually step out and take those risks, then you're not going to give yourself an opportunity for that trust to be proven. So start with small things, right? Baby step that, but move forward and begin to trust him in new ways and greater ways, and also have an open mind and open heart that he's doing a new thing. And so it may look different from the next person. It may look different from what you've experienced in the past, but he's doing a new thing and it's beautiful. And he just says, trust me, believe in my ways, do not doubt. And then don't delay or hold back when I'm speaking to you. I think that's something that he tells me a lot, because, right, we do doubt. Am I hearing correctly? Am I really doing this thing? We doubt ourselves. We doubt God. We doubt the people around us. And when we doubt, we hold back, and I think we miss out. So I just pray for you, if you're facing something difficult, that you would receive peace, that you would receive strength, that you would receive just a newness within your own heart, knowing that God is with you and that He is your firm foundation, that even if the storm is raging around you, that your feet are standing on solid ground. And lean into that. Like, lean in to who God is in your own life. So I just pray that over you in Jesus' name. Thanks for joining. Thanks for tuning in to the Sincerely God podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and share with your friends. If you'd like more information, you can go to my website, sincerelygod.com. There you'll find links to my social media, as well as an ability to get your own copy of Sincerely God, a collection of quotes, either the book or the prayer journal. Until next time, keep listening to how God is speaking to you.
It's all inside you, waiting to be